The Jewish story. This week's story from the Holocaust is taken from the book The Night Trilogy, Night, Dawn, Day, written by Elie Wiesel. "Tell me a little about yourself," Kathleen said. We were sitting in her room where it was pleasantly warm. We were listening to a Gregorian chant which swelled inside us. The words and the music contained a peace that no storm could have disturbed. On a small table our 2 cups were still half full. The coffee had become cold. The semi-darkness made me keep my eyes closed. The feeling of exhaustion that had been weighing down at the beginning of the evening had completely disappeared. My nerves tense, I was conscious that time, as it passed through me, was carrying a part of me along with it. "Tell me," Kathleen said, "I want to know you." Her legs folded under her, she was sitting on my right on the beige couch. Her dream was floating in the air, looking for a place on which to settle. "I don't feel like it," I answered. "I don't feel like talking about myself." To talk about myself, really talk about myself, I would have had to tell her the story of my grandmother. I didn't feel like expressing it in words. Grandmother could only be expressed in prayers. After the war, when I arrived in Paris, I had very often been urged to tell. I refused. I told myself that the dead didn't need us to be heard. They are less bashful than I. Shame has no hold on them, while I was bashful and ashamed. That's the way it is. Shame tortures not the executioners, but their victims. The greatest shame is to have been chosen by destiny. Man prefers to blame himself for all possible sins and crimes, rather than come to the conclusion that God is capable of the most flagrant injustice. I still blush every time I think of the way God makes fun of human beings, his favorite toys. Once I asked my teacher, Kalman the Kabbalist, the following question: "For what purpose did God create man? I understand that man needs God. But what need of man has God?" My teacher closed his eyes, and 1,000 wounds, petrified arteries travelled by terror-stricken truths, drew a tangled labyrinth on his forehead. After a few minutes of contemplation, his lips formed a delicate, very distant smile. "The Holy Books teach us," he said, "that if man were conscious of his power, he would lose his faith or his reason. For man carries within him a role which transcends him. God needs him to be one. The Messiah, called to liberate man, can only be liberated by him. We know that not only man and the universe will be free, but also the one who established their laws and their relations. It follows that man, who is nothing but a handful of earth, is capable of reuniting time and its source, and of giving back to God his image." At the time, I was too young to understand the meaning of my teacher's words. The idea that God's existence could be bound to mine had filled me with a miserable pride as well as a deep pity. A few years later, I saw just, pious men walking to their death, singing, "We are going to break with our fire the chains of the Messiah in exile." That's when the symbolic implication of what my teacher had said struck me. Yes, God needs man. Condemned to eternal solitude, he made man only to use him as a toy to amuse himself. That's what philosophers and poets have refused to admit. In the beginning there was neither the word nor love, but laughter, the roaring eternal laughter, whose echoes are more deceitful than the mirages of the desert. Please pass on this story. Thank you.